Hello, humanity. This is about nature's nature. In the ancient pantheism of the ancient Republic of America, the republic for which we stand is still abridged. James Madison and America's plural founders directed us, for example, only to refer to themselves as James Madison's plan and or as James Madison. And people don't know this. And that's the first principle, /s, because that plan is to get ourselves on a bridge. But we can't get on a bridge when others talk. And that makes the nature of debate. And that simultaneously makes the nature, / hyper simultaneously, makes the nature of agreements. And the difference of that, at the same time, use tactability from how the nature's body, for example, that which shows us that it is generating individual species bodies, made up each one of a whole bunch of individual bodies. Right where and how nature's body shows us. The rest of its complete identity of relationship to itself is distinct from its body, the body of nature, its identity of value progression. To teach this, the science of it, the ancients realized they had to make a name. They had already revealed names for gods, which is a phenomenon that was being shown in the communication of how nature's body, its complete identity of religion, to teach it. It's a scientific value. We're not supposed to agree on the name. It goes with where and how nature shows us at the same time. It's showing us three distinct, hyper invisible but still discernible identities of relationship it has to itself. And distinctly where and how it is also the invisible but still discernible. For example, as the parts of speech of English and of the other languages. This is how ancient English was revealed to be taught. It is more probably and probable and demonstrable. The ancients would have showed us nature's body is showing us why and how the English values the predicate as a hyper additional name for a verb. Why and how we need to appreciate more than one name for a verb. Again, one of the parts of speech of English grammar, as a subject is. Any subject is about the invisible but still discernible. As is that body of nature to the extent we could extent /s, we could discern it generating totally distinct individual species bodies of a whole bunch of individual bodies and two eyes, two sexes, generated across species bodies. Generated to an extent we could /s we could discern as nature's body generating this. And we could and did discern this when we were kids. But where and how nature's system was ignored at countries A through Z, because we have been syntax systems, logic and therefore function, syntax nature, systems tactability, from the one that shows us how are you. Not only does nature's body and its complete identity of relationship to itself being distinct from itself, Earth has a concentrated temporary difference to its equal relativity to what is positive and to what is negative, to all parts of itself, nature self, to all parts therefore of all space / existence. And as that identity of value progression, that is an only increasing identity of forever nature. as value that is making more of itself through temporary/lasting space nature. And this is how English was revealed to be taught. But then, for example, that's why English values the predicate, and the law values the predicate act. And I'm not a lawyer, but Americans en masse and people throughout the world, we know that the names of the people of the sciences, and people that counter them too, they're all sides and exceptions. They have all sides as an array used remotely, originally, and still. But we never addressed this because, for example, things that James Madison had declassified with the plural founders about how there was a torture, extortion, slavery method with more than 13 colonies that had been entrenched, roles even with against all women at the same time, against all native difference, even changing black people's white divides north and south. And then James Madison and them also had declassified for us to understand that anyone who didn't sense anyone else trying to adapt against it, then they were sensed, and then they were hurt, and everyone around them was hurt. That's how they used everyone. Our founders communicated for us to understand how the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. And the same thing, natures of dependencies too. So we could all be used not just from remotely from abroad, but hyper remotely. Easier than it is to make names fight with each other, as other names not even at the location, /s. And with little magic tricks too, like having people say one thing or call up and pretend people talk on the phone together. In other words, increasingly there's a person named John DeMoro, Paul DeMoro. I spoke with Paul DeMoro in real life only one time over the phone, but his brothers have them involved with a whole bunch of different countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. And people they're on Valleycrest Street in Wethersfield, involved also with Central Connecticut State University, with men and women throughout the town and throughout the other towns, through time who have collusions with names at and next to each of the campuses I went. With all kinds of wire crimes, federal evidences crimes. They have some Mendez police involved in the Brit Superior Court and Wethersfield Police. And Channel 3 News have faked conversations with me. Fake ties to me with themselves and with others. At the same time with their sources, including their interbranch. And the sources of WTNH, fake ties to me, fake natures of ties to me. All kinds of federal evidences crimes with corners of streets. And the people associated with them. Increasingly involved with criminally foreign influence uses of databases, /worse, which is also hyper additional from that use of all locations, /s, every single place the human species body has a body. This breaching method knew that we would be using our names and differences as systems tactical ulterior from its own, and that nature would be demonstrating that. And it knew that everyone was forced to those collusions. It was only permitted. Someone would be explaining that. And the breaching method knew that at the same time because nature would be demonstrating to us. That's one of the things that it was. In other words, they go the transatlantic slave, there's a forensic trail there. But there's also a hyper-forensic trail, so to speak, even though he didn't use that phrase. James Madison. Sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. The suburbs look alike from America to Russia to Ukraine. The suburbs were designed to use us remotely from abroad, everything tactically denatured. A landscape theater at the same time, everyone not realizing because of the method, each age of fact, even their nature, has other communicated. For James Madison, for our plural founders, and for the other countries' founders, about the breaching method. All those narratives, America was formed to go against kings. They had slavery left north and south. You guys can't even explain it. The only reason the North or the South was even allowed to discuss the concept for or against slavery was because of James Madison's plan, and right through the Civil War, both sides still had roles with parts that still entrenched with slavery that will hurt everyone around them, and to sentencing. Anyone sentenced for that person was sentenced everyone around them. That's what James Madison described. We have our founders framed for people who are abused. Because you're all abused. It's recorded too. So in other words, all sides of legal cases of crime scenes, the news, names that the difference of intelligence at or next to their locations, the campuses they went. The same with the interbranch at the same time. Those same families and their sources mixed with all these other countries. And this breaching method uses that remotely. You could be an expert in your knowledge of good and evil. Oh, thanks for the boxing. Thanks for the support of boxing. I have to get a professional boxing license. I have to train harder before I could get one. In other words, I was next to the World Trade Center towers the morning of the attack, just before it. I was in the court next to it. See, those W3 FSB has collusion / that's people have been torturing, extorting, in fact, human nature enslaving me. They stole me to fake conversations with Channel 3 News, while the other networks and intelligence next to them colluded with those wire crimes, those predicate acts methods. And the differences of guilt at people at or next to location is manifest because all that was used worse than just hypercriminally foreign influence. But we don't have this phrase, formally discerned, because we still have in America, as they do in their own countries, in America, what our woman was forced to pretend with their motives for using James Madison's plan and the leverage of the plural founders as that plan and as James Madison. And James Madison described how and why he would have been sentenced. Anyone would have been sentenced if they tried to have free speech to an extent /s. You would be sentenced. We're supposed to understand that method /s. And that's why nature is forcing negotiations needed. But nature also demonstrates. It shows us how to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. The way ancient Pantheism taught everybody. Before, from off the phenomenon of from off campuses, there are proofs that it is more probable, for example, that a devil, rather than being like a ghost or an angel or a thing, in other words, that the devil and the shaytun, I believe is the name for it in Arabic, either same or different. In other words, that we're supposed to figure out the campuses, everyone's language is already breached. There's a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. We're supposed to name it. Natural law is real. Nature is showing us nature itself. Even if it's no longer standing, even if it never was. We could hold this is more probable and is more practical to theorize, let alone to convict. With the convictions regarding history, all extensive it. In other words, nature shows us how its body is binding the past, the active present, and the future. Know how there's an extent like of the seasons. We know the body of the future to an extent. And we know, and we are being shown, there's an extent of the future that we do not know. And the same with that which is active time, grouped. To an extent, we know what is true always. And not true is used for lies, or to screen lies, or to maintain exceptions, fake, value, fake. No, in other words, criminal and seditious natures of itself, of fact, human nature, quality, aspect, and our nature. Boxing. So boxing, but makes no sound, but it prefers the shush sound. While martial arts prefer sometimes or semi prefer the shush sound, and while wrestling does not prefer the shush sound, it is more probable that the sports and the sciences, the original, how they were revealed, like algebra, it was semi-preserved through people like the Republic. It's preserved through people together, grouped and individual. Hurt, tricked, forced, persuaded, and by a method /s, but everyone has the plural part. In other words, nature uses a special difference relative to Earth's concentrated, temporary, distinct difference to its equal relativity to all parts of space/existence, nature's body. Its complete identity relation to itself. Here we're more positive forever nature that's also further positive onto its system, which is to show us its body, which is distinct from nature's complete identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that. It shows us. In other words, this could be program reception, in other words, like ancient gaming system. But thank you, people. And this is how we can make hyper peace. We have to understand, let alone the cities. And we have to understand the difference of making, it's because this breaching method showed everyone to only be able to fathom making criminal insidiousness natures of positives out of negatives, and leaving out the breaching method /s roles with that. The Earth has an especial difference, like the oceans, it was especially difficult to standardize things like mercury, plastic, arsenic, medicines, even to the fish of the giant ocean. God knows what else, petroleum. That was especially difficult in their lives. That special difference of the sea died. But that's not the same thing, because we are the earth distinctly, and the earth is us distinctly, but non-distinctly. Forgiveness is relative to, for example, this is also with Cypher. When Jesus Christ says he is the Alpha and he is the Omega. Alpha, see Alpha in the world, that word alphabet. And see, the middle letter of the English language is mother. And mother, like Jesus Christ says he is Alpha and Omega. Mother also is Alpha and Omega. This is all about three identities in relationship to it has to itself, positive at the same time. It's per how nature shows us correlation / hypercorrelation. For the phenomenon of how its body, nature's, is distinct from its complete identity relationship to itself. And it generates all grouped difference /s. That body of nature generating individual species bodies of individual bodies. Also generates all group difference slash S, and or generates demonstration slash S. We're not using correlation by how its body is discernible and discernibly distinct from, but while non-distinct from its complete identity relationship to itself. Vaccine. I teach those things. So I've been noting, no, but this, but then people change your short words. Channel 3 News, please help me. You guys attached to me were influenced by the intelligence next to your location to attach me to fake conversations with yourselves. That was mixed natures of organized crimes and federal evidences crimes and predicate acts methods slash S collusion slash S. Also about the World Trade Center attack. Also as collusions with people from a whole bunch of different countries, intercities, with Central Connecticut State University. And all along routes 175 from Wethersfield to there. And from all along Route 3. And conjunctions to those routes and to that. There's a pattern of people that make fake ties to you, fake natures of ties to people, mix of people I don't know at all. Brought up in the course before the World Trade Center attack, in it and since, Connecticut intercities and intra-cities, inter and intra-campuses. The same names have time collusions, slash S, even including with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of federal criminals, some as his co-defendants in 2006 district court case. Have collusion slash S. And with their kids, a whole bunch of people will quote, confess, demonstrate, confirm. There's a Don LaCanche, who's also involved with a Joe DeMoro, will quote, confess, demonstrate, confirm. People on Valleycrest and Wethersfield are involved with people at Central Connecticut State University and on Meadowgate with the name Kerr. Increasingly, too, an officer, Jerry Miller, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed various natures of federal evidences crimes with a whole bunch of people named Dylan, too. I never had a word of conversation with Detective Dylan. He's increasingly collusions, inter and intra-cities with the campus's databases and with sexual medical offenders of kids next to Harvard Hospital and people associated with the Wethersfield Community Center and the Parks and Recreation. Further next to the parks. And these are also people hyper additionally too, after the names of the same sequence shifts federal evidences crimes. And collusions also forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded for themselves on all sides of legal cases and crime scenes in the interbranch foreign at the same time, switching names. Wethersfield police put me in fake conversation with themselves that weren't at all at the Wethersfield police station as a kid and as an adult. Kids who did go down there and speak with them. They gave affidavits. How they were forced to be there a whole bunch of time. They kept trying to make it look like they put me in a car with someone and they did sequence shifts too. But increasingly that's tied to all kinds of bad things. Timed intercities too, and intra-cities. Uses of multiple police departments used remotely, criminally foreign influence, good people. They have to do jobs that no one wants. Same thing with the courts. But we have to leave out, like, what's which trial's about? You guys can't handle the answer. Slash S, regardless of who made it up, what extent was made up. Which trial's placed next to Webb House. Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Narratives and knowledge of good and evil by that. Under both names, still. Collusion slash S. Against our founders, I think, to an extent, not even realizing, and while delusions rock. Mixed in, I will be healed. I'm not even a doctor. A bunch of doctors at Harvard Hospital have collusions with people intercities. all tied to the same house, further involved. Also with whiting forensics through the years, with various natures of organized crimes, federal evidences crimes, all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes, with people that running the prisons involved with the principal child abuser, forcing him before he was caught. And they had collusions with their other prisoners and with him, with people all along Route 3 and 175, who will tell you this. This is what they brought up, the map and use of corners of buildings and corners of streets, corners of hallways inside buildings, criminally foreign influence, intelligence, defending, is all simultaneously screening a hyperforeign, which maintains the foreign too. In other words, here and there. See, over the foreign, they're just keeping here and there, A through Z countries, people not using words like criminally foreign influence properly. That's why we haven't seen through all the roles known with slavery, while it's still, in other words, people, oh, that's debatable. What's debatable? We have black pupils, whites of eyes. James Madison communicated other than they communicate for him. They use his words, leaving out what he had declassified. They're all guilty at the same time with everyone else. Nature shows us this hyper positive. In other words, black people's peer who disbelieves. Okay, thank you, people. Thank you. Support boxing. Thank you.